All right, registration for 2022 Youth Gathering. So here are some important dates that we're going to talk about, and I would love to have you guys make sure you write these down, share them with your parents, share them with your other adult leaders so that everyone is on the same page when things are due. Starting in September of 2021, data entry will begin online. This means that whoever is your primary group leader for your group should receive information from Synodical Youth Ministry with your church's congregational ID number. And if you've been to youth gatherings in the past, you have used that in order to register. And if you don't receive anything, make sure that you contact them and ask about it, but wait until the end of September in case yours is slower coming in the mail. And you can begin inputting the information for the youth and adult chaperones who will be going with your group. Now, you cannot actually register until November 1st, 2021. I want to repeat that. You cannot send anything in or press the real enter and submit any of that information until November 1st. If you do, it will not count. So gathering registration begins November 1st online on a first come, first served basis. So what happens is you will input that information, you will submit it on November 1st, print off, there's a printout that it'll send you, as well as there might be a couple other things that are coming that they'll want you to include along with your initial deposit, or if you're paying the full price up front, whichever it is, you'll put that payment with it and put it in the mail. That would also be the time that if your congregation has decided you want to travel with another group and you want to stay at the same hotel and be together, you have to send your registrations in together, which means Church A fills out all of their registration paperwork, writes their check. Church B fills out all of their registration paperwork, writes their check, and then they just get put in the same envelope and mailed together. You do not combine them as one group. You do not combine one check. You still do your separate and own registrations. You're just sending them in as one unit. So once you enter online and print your summary, you can mail that check in, mail it all together. And why do you want first come, first serve registration? Well, this is why it's important. Two things. Number one, this will give you first priority for downtown hotels. The majority of the hotels that the gathering is contracted with are in the downtown Houston area, but then also the Galleria area. So if you really want access to some of the closer hotels, if that's really important to your group, you're going to want to get it in ASAP. And number two, acceptance. One thing that gathering planners are kind of looking at and thinking about is, what if something happens in the future where Houston has to say, we can only limit the gathering to a certain amount of people. You cannot have the amount of people you were initially planning for, whether it might be COVID or something else that arises. So if the gathering acceptance has to be limited, it will be run based on when you got your registration paperwork in. So January 2022, you will receive a registration confirmation from the gathering office. March 2nd, 2022, the rate increases. So the registration price will go up. So if you want the early registration price, you have to have paid something by that date. If you first send in your registration after March 2nd, then you're paying the higher price. Spring 2022, I'm going to guess that's going to be somewhere in March, April-ish. It just says spring. I don't know what to tell you. That's when you will receive your hotel info. The gathering office will be assigning hotels. You are not having to rate and choose hotels. They will be assigning it based upon your registration time and your group needs. That's when you will also find out exactly how much your hotel is per night. I really stress in some of the adult leader resources that we've put out, make sure your group has applied for tax exemption status in Texas. our churches are tax exempt there. Yay, from state taxes. So what you would have to do is file with the comptroller's office in Texas, and it is good indefinitely. So if your group actually applied for it for the 2013 gathering in San Antonio, then it's actually still valid. If you've lost the number or can't find it, you can go to their website and actually find it, or talk to your church office. Maybe your church secretary or business administrator filed that paperwork away or kept it somewhere so that you had it for future events. And that will take the state portion of the hotel occupancy tax off of your bill, which is great. Then in April of 2022, your hotel deposit is due. The hotel deposit is one night in full per room. So if the price ends up being, let's say, $155, I'm just guessing, I have no idea. If you are renting 5 rooms, you're going to have to prepay $155 plus whatever other applicable taxes might be. Remember, you're not going to be exempt from everything. A lot of times there's like a hotel tax or a tourist tax or something that they call it. Whatever that number ends up being per room, per night, you're going to have to prepay all of that up front. So make sure as you're factoring in your fundraisers and getting in payments from families that you know that that amount of money is due. And usually they prefer it by a check. Sometimes they'll accept it by a credit card. That'll be important for your church office to know too, so you can get that done. Then May 4th, this is a big day, May the 4th. Full payment of your registration is due by May 4th, 2022 for express registration. So registration price, the early price, $395. If you have not paid in full $395 per person by May 4th, you cannot do express registration when you get there. You're going to have to wait in the long line, go through with paying on site. It will take a lot longer. So I really, really want to stress it's important, if you want to save time when you get to the gathering, to pay everything in full by May 4th, 2022. So when you initially send in that registration, you have to send a minimum of $150 a person, and then have up until that May 4th date to pay the rest. If you did the late registration and didn't pay until March, it's $450 a person. So it's a $55 a person savings to go ahead and register early. If you cancel any of your group after May 31st, 2022, someone has a family event and they say, I can't go anymore, whatever it might be, you will be charged the full amount for that person no matter what, and your $150 is non-refundable. So let's say you only paid the $150 per person and were planning to pay the balance when you got on site. Someone on June 15th says, I can't go anymore. Your church will still owe the full $395 price. So that additional $245 will still be owed when you get there. That is not going to be negotiable, just because by that date, so much money has already been put out by planners on behalf of the students and on behalf of the programming. They have to pay in full. So it's really important for your families to understand that. And one thing you might do when you do your contracts with them about going is have them understand up front that if they pull out at a certain time, they still have to pay, or else your church will be hanging for that money. So you need to really consider that when you talk to your families. As far as registration also goes, one thing a lot of questions have been asked about is the youth to adult ratio. If you are sending kids to the gathering, you need to send a minimum of 2 adults. They are not going to force you to do that, but here's the thing. You really need to have at least 2. In case something were to go wrong, there would be some kind of emergency. Having a backup is really important. And the ratios kind of go 2 to 6 youth, 2 to 4 adults, 7 to 13 youth, 3 to 4 adults, 14 to 20 youth, 4 to 5 adults, 21 to 27 youth, 5 to 6 adults, 28 through 34, 6 to 7 adults, and then it kind of goes up from there. And the reason they do that is because, let's be real, y'all, the youth gathering is awesome. Every adult would want to go if they knew how exciting it was. And they have to limit it because the event's really for the teens, right? So make sure that you're not overburdening your group with the adults. And if you register more than what your recommended allowance is, they're going to tell you no, just so you understand. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. If you have a youth that has medical issues, some other kind of emergency situation where an adult needs to be dedicated to that one youth for a particular reason, contact the gathering office. There usually are special circumstance forms that come out with the initial registration packet, and just kind of read through those first and make sure that if there's something that qualifies in there, go ahead and use that allowance. And if not, feel free to contact them and say, this is our circumstance. What can we do about it? Now, you still have to pay for that adult to go. They don't get to go free, but if you need that kind of opportunity is there. Looking to see if there's anything else. Age. Remember that the registration age is an either or. It needs to be that the youth are either age 14 or finished 8th going into 9th grade at the time of the gathering. So that means the kids who will be starting 9th grade in fall of 2022 are eligible, or kids who are 14 years of age by July, and I usually say July 1st, 2022. And then they need to be under age 21. So remember that the adults going with your group really need to be over 21. That's really important, just because of decisions that have to be made, other circumstances. That's out there. Remember, each congregation needs to meet that youth and adult ratio. You need to remember to send in your payment with your registration, and you need to name the person who is going to be the main contact for your group on that registration. So if you don't have a professional church worker who's taking care of this, or even if you do and one of the parents is going to take the lead, whoever that is, you need to decide who that primary is, because that information will be on your paperwork. As always, if you have any other questions or any other concerns about registration or how to do that, please contact me and I'll be happy to help as much as I can. And if not, I can contact Gathering Office for you and we can make sure to get your questions answered. Have a great day.